All right, we're on. All right, good morning, Cerritos High School students, and welcome to a very, very special presentation that we have this morning. I'm going to have to kind of hunch over here a little bit, if you don't mind, with a very special guest. Now, I think all of us have history classes, or most of us have history classes, and one of the things they talk about in regards to history is it is so important because we don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past. And today we're going to hear a little bit about probably one of the most horrific things that's happened in world history, and that was the Holocaust. We have actually a survivor of the Holocaust, and as the years go on, now over 70 years, those survivors are fewer and fewer. So that's why this guest is so special, and it may be your only opportunity to have an audience with a Holocaust survivor. His name is Dr. Jacob Eisenbach. He was born in 1923. So do the math. He's 101 years old. He was born in Poland. He had a fantastic family with an older sister and 2 younger brothers, an extended family, about 100 relatives, and he is the only survivor of that extended family. He studied at 3 universities in Poland, Germany, and the United States. He came to the United States in 1950 with his wife and a 2-year-old son. Get this, he practiced as a dentist for 60 years. That's a long career. He has 2 sons, 2 daughters-in-law, 2 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren. Now, in 2019, he produced and directed a documentary about his life before, during, and after World War II. His documentary will be shown all over the world on YouTube. The title is The Star of Jacob. So Dr. Eisenbach is a survivor of the Holocaust who leveraged the ashes of World War II into an international crusade against all genocides. He has devoted himself to his mission of stressing the dangers of hate, preventing another Holocaust, and all genocides. So that being said, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our very special guest, Dr. Jacob Eisenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Walker, for inviting me to speak here to this group of students, and for that wonderful introduction. Can you hear me way back there?
Yes.
Good. I'm going to speak about my family and what happened to each member of my family. I had a wonderful childhood. I was very lucky. I was born into a great, loving family, which changed on September 1st, 1939. That was the day when the World War II broke out. And that's when my happy childhood has transformed into an unimaginable nightmare. I was born in the city of Łódź in Poland, the second largest city after the capital of Warsaw. There was a lot of anti-Semitism in Poland. Jews have lived in Poland for almost 1,000 years. They were invited by the Polish king, Jan Sobieski, in the 13th century to come to Poland to build the Polish economy. they grew to 3.5 million Jews in Poland, 10% of the Polish population of 35 million. At this point, in my city of Lodz, where half of the people in the city of 700,000 were Jews. And at this point, I spoke recently to an American lady who's visiting my city of Lodz. Of the 350,000 Jews that lived there before the war, guess how many Jews are in the city of Lodz at this point? 0. There are no Jews left in Poland, except in the city of Krakow, where there are 5,000 Jewish people. My earliest recollection of my childhood is when I was 3 years old, and my father brought me a birthday gift, a beautiful red tricycle, and he brought gifts for my siblings. At the age of 12, in 1935, I was playing in the park in the city of Lodz. And all of a sudden, Polish anti-Semites came to the park with swastikas on their arm and crowbars in their hands. They locked the 2 entrances to the park, and there were a lot of Jewish people sitting in the park in benches, studying the Torah, reading Jewish newspapers, playing chess, and Jewish children were playing all around. All of a sudden, those Polish anti-Semites entered the park with crowbars and started beating and killing the Jewish people. The park was surrounded by a fence. I couldn't get out. So I jumped the fence and I ran home. We lived about 2 miles away from the park, to tell my parents what was happening there in the park. And the police was so anti-Semitic, they didn't interfere with whatever those anti-Semites were doing. The city of Lodz was a textile manufacturing center. And my father was a textile manufacturer, not on a big scale. He employed about 30 people, and he was very successful. Every summer, he would rent a house in a resort place outside the city of Lodz, about 10 miles outside the city. And that farmer would come with a long, drawn-out, horse-drawn wagon, loaded all our belongings for the entire summer vacation. And he took us to the Mountain of Cherries. That was the name of the resort place. And it took that horse a whole day to get there. And us 4 kids were sitting on top of that wagon, and we had a lot of fun. Once we got to the Mountain of Cherries, we made new friends. We played a lot of soccer, basketball, swimming, bicycling. And on weekends, we went to a nearby forest to pick fresh blueberries. My mother was an excellent cook. She prepared delicious meals. What you see on that screen is my mother. Whenever I speak about my mother, I like to say that she was not human. She was an angel in a human body. She was respected and admired by everybody who knew her. She was charitable. She helped the poor. Every Shabbos, which was Friday night, she made a Shabbat dinner and always invited a cool person to dinner. She did not go through the Holocaust. She passed away at the age of 41. She died 1 year before the war. During childhood, she had a childhood disease which affected her heart valves. And in those days, the medical profession had no solution for that problem. And she passed away at the age of 41. I was 15 at the time. Before she passed away, she would gather her 4 children. My oldest sister, Fela, 3 years older, and myself and my 2 younger brothers. I was the oldest of the 3 boys. And she would bless us by saying, "You are my greatest possession." She never lived long enough to know what that blessing did for us during the Nazi occupation. On September 1st, 1939, completely unexpectedly, World War II broke out. A few days before the war broke out, Hitler, who was the head of the Nazi Party in Germany, he signed a non-aggression pact with Joseph Stalin, the president of the Soviet Union. They decided to divide Poland and not to interfere with each other's activity. Once they entered my city, within 7 days, they occupied my city of Lodz without firing a single shot. They took the old part of the city and built a wrought iron fence around it. A few months later, on May 1st, 1940, the Jewish people were ordered to move into the ghetto. That ghetto every 200 feet at a watchtower guarded by Nazi soldiers with machine guns. This is a picture of a watchtower. And that was not a live person, it was just showing how the Nazis guarded the ghetto so nobody could escape. And there was a Nazi soldier with a machine gun pointed at that figure. Once they occupied the city of Lodz, they put us on a starvation diet. They gave us that much food to last us for a whole week. In addition to starvation, we had a typhus epidemic. We had our own Jewish doctors in the ghetto, and 2 hospitals were included in the ghetto. My youngest brother, Henry, at the age of 11, developed a high fever, 105. We called the doctor, and he diagnosed him with typhus. And he told us to take him to a hospital, which we did. The next day, after we took him to the hospital, I was walking to my job. I had an unimportant job. And I passed one of the hospitals. And what do I see? A big truck in front of the hospital with spaces between the board. The kind of truck that is used to transport cattle. And they were loading patients from the hospital on that truck, 30 layers of live people on top of each other. Those people who were transported out of the ghetto in those trucks were taken to Auschwitz, which had gas chambers and crematoria. And the Polish train conductors were telling us that they're taking trainloads of people from the ghetto, innocent men, women, and children of the Jewish faith. And they took them to the gas chamber in Auschwitz, Majdanek, and Treblinka. Those were 2 other camps which had gas chambers. And the Polish train conductors were telling us that they never see anybody coming out of these camps. And they could smell burning flesh in the air. So we knew what they were doing with those people that are being transported out of the ghetto. 7,000-8,000 people per trainload. And they were all put into the gas chambers. They were told that they're going to other camps for labor, but that was a big lie. They put them into those gas chambers where there were outlets for showers, but no water came out of these outlets. Instead, the gas, Cyclone B, a deadly gas, was coming out, and in 3 minutes, all the people in the gas chamber were dead. Then the floor opened up and they dropped the bodies into crematoria where the bodies were burned into ashes. My sister Fela. Would you move this to my sister Fela? That's my whole family. This is my sister Fela. Before they locked up the ghetto hermetically on May 1st, 1940, they issued an order that all Jews have to be inside the ghetto by May 1st, 1940, and any Jew found outside that ghetto will be shot to death on the spot. Before that time, it was still possible for Jewish people to escape to the Russian part of Poland. And one of those people who escaped was my sister Fela. She was a beautiful girl with an intelligence to match. She and one of her girlfriends developed a secret language. They were speaking to each other backwards. And nobody could understand what they're talking about. Hitler decided to invade the Soviet Union to break the non-aggression pact with Stalin in 1941. He was advised by his top political and military leaders not to do it. Napoleon tried it in 1812 and failed miserably because he couldn't supply the front lines in the brutal Russian winters of 60, 70 below zero and 5-6 feet of snow. And he retreated from the Soviet Union, from Russia. There was no Soviet Union yet. He was completely defeated. Hitler's political leaders, military and political leaders, advised him not to invade the Soviet Union by telling them what happened to Napoleon. He would not listen to his leaders, and he decided to attack the Soviet Union because he wanted to get the 3 million Jews that were living in the Soviet Union. He did not succeed for the same reason Napoleon didn't succeed. And he lost 1 million Nazi soldiers at the Battle of Stalingrad, couldn't supply the front lines, and retreated from Russia, defeated. After he returned from Russia, he occupied the city of Lvov. That's where my sister Fela settled in. So I met a lady from Lodz who managed to escape from the ghetto of Lodz, from the Nazis, and she told me what the Nazis did after they occupied the city. There were 110,000 Jews living in the ghetto of Lvov, including my sister. And the Nazis one day came with machine guns, and in 3 days they killed all 110,000 Jews involved, including my sister Fela, and I have never seen Fela again. In the meantime, they were taking trainloads of Jewish people from the ghetto, telling them they're going to other camps for labor, but that was a big lie. They took them to gas chambers and murdered them. I had a family, a large extended family of about 100 people. And at this point, I am the only survivor of that extended family. I have dozens of aunts and uncles and cousins. One day, my father gets an order to report for deportation with 600 other men. And I met one of the men who escaped from that group. After the war, I met him, and he told me what the Nazis did with those 600 men. They had them carry heavy rocks from one place to another on a starvation diet, and they all died out. That left me and my brother Sam in the ghetto. One day, I received an order to report for deportation, and I knew what that meant. I knew that they would be taking me to the gas chambers. I disobeyed that order. I did not report. And we were hiding in a place that we used to live, a one upstairs room. A friend put a padlock on the outside door. And we were hiding in a pile of straw in the corner of that room. Other than that, the room was completely empty. And one day, we hear heavy footsteps on those squeaking wooden floors leading to that upstairs room we lived in. Loud voices. 2 policemen come up looking for me. They did not look for my brother Sam. He was not ordered to report. And one of the 2 policemen had a flashlight, and he saw the padlock, and he says to the other policeman, "But there is a padlock here." There's nobody here. Let's go. And the other policeman was a wise guy, and he said, "No, let's not go. Let's get a crowbar and knock off the padlock and look inside." They went downstairs, got a crowbar, in a few minutes, knocked off the padlock and opened the door. And the policeman with the flashlight looks around that room, and he says, "There's nothing here. Let's go." And the other guy says to him, "No, let's look." And he found us. And I knew where I'm going. My brother Sam didn't have to go, and he could have said to me, Jack, I know where you are going. I am not going. I'm staying right here, and no amount of persuasion would convince him that he should stay here. He said to me, most of our people are now gone and dead, and now they are taking you away. I am not staying here by myself. I'm going with you, and whatever will happen to you will happen to me. And he said that knowing full well that we're going to the gas chambers. For 3 days and 3 nights in a train, they took us to Auschwitz, and we were standing just outside the gas chambers, just to be unloaded to the gas chambers. All of a sudden, the train conductors got orders to change direction and to take me away from that place of deadly danger to safety. And they took us to another camp, which was much farther away from the fighting front. I can't explain why they took me away from there, except by saying that must have been by a miracle of the Almighty God. And they took me to another camp in Skarżysko, about 40 miles from Lodz. There was a munitions factory, a German munitions factory, with an adjoining concentration camp of 6,000 Jewish slave laborers. That's where I met my future wife. One day, as the front was retreating, the Nazi front, they decided to order their Nazi soldiers with machine guns to run for their lives. And the Jewish commander of the camp advised us, don't leave the camp in the middle of the night. There are people dropping dead in the streets of the city of Częstochowa, where they took us. We listened to that advice. And the commander was telling us, wait till the morning. Don't leave in the middle of the night. The next morning, we were liberated by the Russians. And the first thing we were looking for was food. We were starved. And we found a Nazi army truck loaded with food, with salamis and cheeses and vodka, but we didn't drink vodka. And they told us, start out by eating small amount because your bodies are not used to assimilate larger amount of food, and you get sick if you do. So we listened to that advice. And we went to the city of Lodz in a train from Częstochowa. Everybody who survived, the first place they went is to their hometowns to see who else is still alive. I enrolled in the University of Lodz, and my brother Sam joins the Polish army. Would you put my brother Sam? This is my brother Sam. After 2 years in the army, he obtained the rank of colonel, one rank under a general, at the age of 22. When the army decided to send him to the city of Białystok, which was known to be very anti-Semitic. So he changed his name from Sam Eisenbach to Stanisław Adamowski, as Polish as you can get it, to hide his Jewish identity, and he goes to Białystok. And he had the same functions out there. He was in charge of a division of 10,000 soldiers. It's unheard of that a young man at the age of 22 obtained such a high rank. After he went to Białystok, one day he came home from his office, and an anti-Semite, a Polish anti-Semite, was waiting for him inside his home. And as soon as he came in, he put a bullet in his head, and he died on the spot. That happened in 1947, 2 years after the war. In January of 1945, we were liberated from the camp in Częstochowa by the Russian army. And we went back to Lodz. The trains didn't operate yet. It took a month before they started working. And we walked up to the train station, and it was so loaded with people going to Lodz that there was no room for us to get in. So we went to the roof of the train, and the roof had a metal railing all around the roof, and we tied ourselves with our belts to that railing to prevent us from falling off the train when the train was making turns. I enrolled at the University of Lodz. I studied in 3 countries at universities of Poland, Germany, and the United States. And I married my girlfriend from the camp a few months after the war ended. One day, in the city of Kielce. Polish anti-Semites came to the city and started killing a few of the Jewish survivors of the Holocaust. They killed 43 of them in the streets of Kielce. And my wife and I decided we have to get out of Poland because tomorrow they may come to Lodz and do the same thing. But we couldn't get out because the Russians had a policy of not allowing their people to get out of the Soviet Union because they didn't want their people to see how people live in free societies. There was a Jewish organization in Palestine. Israel didn't exist yet until 1946. And that organization loaded us on truck and took us across the border to Czechoslovakia, and the Polish border guards looked the other way. And I don't have enough words to praise the Czech people. They were wonderful to us. And they told us, we will take you any place around the world that you want to go. And if you have any relatives in another country, let us know their names and we'll find them for you. And they did. I had cousins, cousin Marysia and her husband, who left Poland in 1938 before the war and went to Buenos Aires, Argentina. And they put an ad in the paper with their name and told them who is looking for them. And they found those cousins for us. And the pictures I'm showing were sent to us by my cousin Marysia from Buenos Aires because the Nazis took everything away from us. So after we left Poland, we wanted to go to the American zone occupied by Americans in Germany, to the city of Frankfurt, because I had some boyhood friends there, Holocaust survivors, and I wanted to be with them. So they took us there to Frankfurt. I enrolled in the College of Dentistry in Frankfurt. After 4 years, I got my doctor's degree, and we did not want to stay in Germany, so we came to the United States. The law stated that if you have a doctor's degree from another country, you cannot practice in the United States. You have to have an American degree. So I applied to all 43 dental schools in the United States, and they all turned me down. Not because of anti-Semitism. I didn't even tell them that I'm a Jew and a survivor of the Holocaust. I just told them I have a degree in dentistry and I'm looking to be admitted with advanced standing to obtain an American degree. And they all answered me we cannot accept you because we have no room. There were 1,000 applicants for each opening, and they couldn't get me in. A friend of mine was a student at the University of Iowa, and he came to New York, where we used to live, and he told me to come to Iowa. So I left my wife, and I had a 2-year-old son, Harry, and I dragged my bus 1,000 miles from New York to Iowa. And a new dean was taking over at the Dental College of Iowa. He was a professor of dentistry at the University of Minnesota. And I decided to give him a month to settle into his new position. And then I called the secretary, and she gave me an appointment with him. And I was sitting with him for 15 minutes and telling them that I'm looking to be admitted with advanced standing, and he said to me, I'm new here and I cannot take on the responsibility of admitting you, so I'm going to call a senior faculty member, Dr. Erling. He showed up in 5 minutes. He introduced me to him, and he says Dr. Eisenbach has a German degree, and he wants to be admitted with advanced standing. I want you to talk to him, but don't give me your answer today. We'll talk about it later. And Dr. Tone spoke to me for 10 minutes and turns to the dean and says, I see no reason why we cannot admit Dr. Eisenbach with advanced standing today. And then the dean told him not to tell him today, but he did. And I was admitted on the spot after a short interview with the dean and Dr. Tone. I came to the junior class where they put me into, and sophomores were coming to the junior class, and they already heard about me. I was the only Jew in the entire dental college. But they never heard of anti-Semitism. There were great people in the state of Iowa. They accepted me with open arms, and I became friends with each one of them. After I obtained the second dental doctorate at the University of Iowa, we moved to California, and we settled in Orange County. And that's where we live now. I was practicing dentistry for 62 years. I retired from dentistry at the age of 92, but I did not retire. I assumed a new profession of becoming an international speaker, covering in my speeches 3 world important problems that we are facing. One of them is hatred, the dangers of hatred. The other one is the Holocaust, where the Nazis managed to murder 6 million of our innocent Jewish men, women, and children. And the third problem is genocide, which applied to non-Jewish people. There was a very famous American philosopher and writer who once said the Jewish people suffered throughout their history from persecutors and killers. All of these killers are now gone. None of them is still around. But the Jews are still here. What is the reason that the Jews survived all of these killers? The reason is their unbreakable and indestructible faith in the Almighty God. A great benefit of the Holocaust was the creation of the State of Israel in 1946. There was a gentleman, his name was Abba Ibn. He was a very famous and one of the greatest speakers in the world. He was Israel's foreign minister and ambassador to the United Nations. Whenever he spoke, I never missed a word he said. And this is what he said: Israel is here to stay forever. That was a prophetic prediction he made. And he made another prophetic prediction, and that is another Holocaust will never happen again because Israel is here. And I have faith in those predictions. On my birthday, on April 27th, which is less than 2 weeks from now, my oldest son Harry and his wife of 40 years, and they live north of Santa Barbara, and they are coming down to celebrate my birthday, my 101st birthday. And they'll be staying here 2 nights and take me to restaurants of my choice. I am a member of Chabad of Yorba Linda. Chabad is a Jewish Orthodox organization. And I never heard of Chabad. One day I received a phone call from Rabbi Eliezri, who's the head of Chabad in Yorba Linda, and he says he wants to speak to me. So after my last patient at 6 o'clock, we set up a 2-hour appointment, and I was impressed by his intelligence and his knowledge. 2 weeks later, he calls me again. He wants to speak to me again. So we set up another session. And after the 3rd session, I became a dedicated member of the Chabad Orthodox organization. My parents were not Orthodox. So, when I was Bar Mitzvah in 1936, at the age of 13, they just gave me a small family birthday party. And my father hired a rabbi who came in 2-3 times a week and taught me some Hebrew alphabet. And that's all that I learned about Jewish history and Jewish philosophy. Until I joined the Chabad in Yorba Linda, and that's where I learned. And I'm a dedicated member of the Yorba Linda Chabad. I made many friends here. Personally, I never experienced any anti-Semitism in the United States. Not that it wasn't there, it was, but I never experienced it. I love this country. This is my home. And now we live in Villa Park in Southern California. And from here, I'm not going anyplace. I was asked the question during my speeches. I spoke at many universities, churches, mosques, colleges, high schools. And I was asked the question, why did Hitler hate the Jews so much? So I did some research on it, and I found a book with Hitler's speeches. On page 222 of that book, there was a speech Hitler made where he said why he hated the Jews so much. He was planning to build a German imperium for 1,000 years without justice and without morality. And it was the Jews who brought these ideas to the world, and they are in his way, and that's why he has to eliminate all the Jews he can get a hold of. On May 4th, 1945, the Allied forces defeated the Nazis in Normandy on the Western Front in France. And they bombed the German cities into smithereens. I was in the middle of it. I saw it with my own eyes. And on May 4th, 1945, Hitler was the head of the Nazi party, committed suicide. And Germany was taken over by other chancellors. Those chancellors had the position of a prime minister. And they declared that anti-Semitism is a crime against humanity. The story goes that God was looking for a nation that would accept his teachings worldwide. And all of these nations turned away that proposition, but the Jews accepted it in spite of the responsibilities that goes with them. So I ended up with 2 doctorate degrees in dentistry. turn over the meeting to a question and answer period. And I encourage you to ask any questions that you want. I'll answer any questions. I'm just asking for your consideration of not asking me political questions. I don't deal with political questions because they're controversial. I only deal with subjects that I have personally experienced, and they never ask me those questions. Now, if you have any questions for me, please do not hesitate. Every question you have is important, and I would like to have someone.
We're a little limited on time, but I do want to invite students just for Dr. Eisenbach's ability to hear you rather than just kind of shouting out from the side. If you have some questions to ask, if you wanted to come on over here, I encourage you to do so. And we're only going to take just a few questions because I know your teachers are anxious to get back to class as well. So any questions at all? I know I had one, Dr. Eisenbach, your birthday is coming up and you said you got to go to a restaurant of your choice. Where are you going to go? Have you decided yet?
So who has the first question?
Anybody with a question at all? If you just come on down. Oh, here we go. Great. And just line up behind your name and line up behind this young man. We probably take about 5 students who are interested in asking questions.
Hello, my name is Sean, and the question I had was, what drove you to join the medical field, especially as a dentist, following all the events and experiences that you've gone through?
Do not hesitate. Ask any questions you want.
So Dr. Eisenbach, Sean was asking, what was it that drove you to choose a profession in medicine as a dentist?
I had a friend who was a dentist, and he convinced me that dentistry is a great profession. And that's why I studied dentistry. And it is a great profession. We used a drill which was running 20,000 revolutions per minute. And one day they came up with a drill that runs 400,000 revolutions per minute. And we didn't know it at that time that a high-pitched noise from this high-speed drill affected our hearing. So I need Mr. Walker to repeat your questions to me.
All right, great. Why don't you come up and so, yeah, if you can get up here would be the closer you can get. We're going to have the students come right up here and speak to you through the mic. So give your name and your question.
Hello, my name is Olivia. I want to first thank you for giving your time today and allowing us to listen to your story. My question to you is, do you have any recommendations for any pieces of literature or different kinds of media so that we can educate ourselves more on the topic of the Holocaust?
Would you repeat that question?
Yeah. Do you have any recommendations for any pieces of literature or different kinds of media to educate ourselves on the Holocaust further?
Yes. My message to you, young people, is guard your precious minds against accepting ideas of hatred. Hatred is just a word, but it can lead to the death of millions of innocent people. There is a book that book was sent to me by the American ambassador to Albania, a small European country, 90% Muslim, 10% Christians. And Albania was occupied by the Nazis. They were hiding their Jewish neighbors in such a way that the Nazis could not find a single one. And the title of this booklet is 100% of Jews in Albania rescued from the Holocaust. There's another book which was written by the former American Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright, in cooperation with the former American Secretary of Defense, William Cohen. The title of this book is Preventing Genocide, and they describe workable methods of preventing genocide. Try to obtain a copy of this book from the American Museum of the Holocaust in Washington, D.C., or from the internet. It's a great book. I highly recommend it. We all have to work against the greatest crimes that are happening throughout history. We want to establish peace on earth by teaching everyone to treat your neighbor the way you would like to be treated. And your neighbor is not only the person next door, not only the person 3,000 miles from you, not only the person 10,000 miles from you. Just teach people the importance of keeping the peace on earth. And this is my mission. I devoted all my time after I retired from dentistry to spreading those ideas to establish peace on earth when everyone could be sitting on his fig tree and nobody would make him afraid. I want to thank you very much for being here and for listening to me. And I hope that you, as future leaders, can contribute to the prevention of Holocaust and the prevention of genocides.
All right, one of our students, Dr. Eisenbach, who we want to give credit for helping put this whole thing together, is our very own Victoria Cienfuegos, and she wanted to close with a question or a few words.
I had a question. I don't know if you already went over this already, but for your book, where can you buy it, and would you recommend it if we wanted to know more?
The book that I wrote is my Hugo Michael. That was what my brother said to me before we were deported to Auschwitz. I also produced a documentary movie. I never made a movie before, so I hired a professional movie maker, Mr. William Wall, and he helped me to make it more professional. I highly recommend that you go to YouTube. At no charge, you'll be able to see that documentary where I was the only actor in that movie. You'll be amazed what you see. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Eisenbach. I want to thank Victoria for helping put this all together. Her teacher is here with us, a very special guest, also Rabbi Rubenstein. We'll give her an I want to thank you as an audience because I really appreciate your attentiveness today. You're representing our school anytime we bring guests in, and I'm so proud of you. I hope this subject resonates with you. Overall, I know sometimes it's not easy to listen to, man's inhumanity to man, but it's fact. It happened. There are people out there that are literally spreading lies. They're called Holocaust deniers, and it's way too easy to access that stuff on the internet, but it is a lie, and this is living history in front of you, someone who experienced that horror. So what Dr. Eisenbach is saying to us is we need to keep the memory of the Holocaust alive. We need to spread the fact that it is truth and work together to spread love and peace to make sure nothing like this can ever happen again. Dr. Eisenbach, we owe you a lot for this time. I'm so impressed by your memory and just photographic memory, really, from all that happened and all that you can share with us. We have just a little gift for you. We want to make you an honorary Don for today. We are the Cerritos High School Dons. So we got you some merchandise. So once again, thank you, audience. Thank you, Victoria, for putting this together. You guys have been terrific. One last applause for Dr. Eisenbach.
They were the forest. It was called fighting back. But anyways, if they don't, sadly, I will get them information. I'll get them answers. Don't let anybody